Here we go. Yep. Okay, well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming along today to hear from Serena Pacifico on all things sustainable event planning. Before we kick off, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are today. So for me, that's the Yagara and the Turrbal people here in Meanjin. And I would like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and I extend that acknowledgement to any First Nations people who are joining in this call today or listening to this recording later. So you've all would have seen the blurb about Serena. In short, she's doing some amazing things in terms of sustainability with events, but also marketing. And it's one of the few businesses in the world, I would garner, who are really focusing on marketing in this respect. So I will hand over to Serena to introduce herself. She's got a lot to share with us and plenty of time for questions too. So if you have questions throughout, pop them in the chat and we'll get through them, or you can come off mute a bit later. So over to you, Serena.
Thank you, Mel. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm assuming you're all sitting on the other side. So as Mel said, I've been working in event space for a while, but beside that, I actually did work with IABC since 2016. We've done a few of the fusion events together. So I think Mel for sure, and I'm not sure if any one of you has seen me floating around your inboxes here and there throughout the years. If that's yes, so hello once again. I have been working in events and marketing for about 15 years. And about 10 years ago, I basically had a striking moment when I said, I am done marketing and doing events for another lipstick. I'm not going to do that anymore. So I've just decided to understand a bit more on how I could combine what it's my address and beliefs, or living a little bit more of a conscious life at grassroots, and bring that into the business space. So most of the events I plan are corporate events, take it as a conferences, awards nomination, gala dinners, presentation, launch of companies or products, but that's more or less the space I work in. And I am actually a certified sustainable event planner. So if any of you it is going towards that direction, also grab me at the end and I can direct you to some of the boards that you can look into if you haven't. Although it's not, you don't have to, but if you really want to go that route, you can. And then with what I've been doing for the last few years, it has been pretty much in Southeast Asia. So I've been here for about 7 to 8 years on and off. What we're doing today is, first of all, we're trying to understand how is sustainability interlaced with events and why we should care for it. Then we go into the most fun part, which is a green event design and how we create a sustainable event. And I'm telling you from now, this is not how to do policy making. It's not how to create a pretty image. This is how you can actually physically implement this today or tomorrow into your next event. So it's going to be pretty much creating a plan, but also how to help you with ideas and ideations for you to actually get it done. I have a quick case study to show you as well, and hopefully that will kickstart some of your questions. So I hope you guys will interrupt me there, if not before. And we will have a few tips I will leave you with, and some things you will want to watch out if you're just starting with this before we move on to the Q&A. Now, one thing I'd like to hear from you guys before we start is, are you all event planners full-time, or what are your roles? Feel free to come on the mic or just write it in the chat. Just want to know who I'm dealing with today. Okay, I can't see my chat anymore. Mel, help.
So we've got a few comms people where events are part of their role, and okay. Sally is full-time. She owns her own event management company. Helen says general comms, she's interested, and I've got somebody called Clark N, who is an event planner.
All right, okay, so we have a mixture. Good mix here.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good mix. So I will try and stick to my plan, but if some of it it's going too far, just raise your hand and I'll try to make it as easy as possible for you. But let's start on the why. So as I said, about a decade ago, I just was done with planning silly events, or at least not with the heart in the way I wanted to. And I feel that especially in the last few years, just right before COVID, I could see momentum really taking up into the climate change space, and every single type of business you can name it, it's now having a sustainable department, is having sustainability goals attached to the company, or is at least trying to do something pro-climate or pro-climate change. And I feel that when you are in comms and events, we put together people for a living, we educate people for a living. And I think that it is part of our duty to make sure that when we put people together, we give just a positive impact, both at a personal level, at a ecological level. And to be honest with you, we kind of hit all of the different areas. So if you're familiar with the concept of the triple bottom line, it's actually the 3 pillars of sustainability, which are people, planet, and prosperity. And if you look at when we plan events and when we talk about what we do, we hit all of these boxes. So we cannot escape from this. When we look at putting people together, we have an opportunity to promote a healthier and a more inclusive way of living. We can share what we know and educate on the best practices to preserve the environment, and also maybe co-working together with some of those organizations to help them sharing what they're doing pro-planet. And think about all the money that you spend in events, especially those that they do budgeting here for events. You know how high that is. Every single penny that you spend planning your events, it actually is an opportunity to bring that income to somebody that needs it the most. So the prosperity of the planet, it's also your responsibility on where you spend your budget. To a certain level, I know we have clients to respond to, but that's also an opportunity that you have to really move forward that budget in a more meaningful way. So as you can see, we can't escape this. We have to do it all, and it's pretty much embedding the entire concept of sustainability in just event planning. Now, as I said, I've been doing this for a while, and it took me really a bit to get together my thoughts on it. But just to give you an idea, a green event design, it focuses obviously into the basic principle of events planning. So you need to be organized, you need to be on a wow effect, you need to have everything working, you need to respect your budget. So that all stays, that doesn't go anywhere. We're just adding some more fun to the picture. So when we look at planning more sustainably, we really have a focus on eco-friendly practices. We look a lot at what is resource efficiency, and how do we engage communities within the circle and outside the circle to create a more cohesive environment. And it's ultimately, we want to make sure that the impact that we bring is as positive as possible. We all have an impact on the planet because we live, therefore we make an impact. So how do we make sure that the impact that we create is as positive as possible, and trying to really take care of the negative impact of our events? So that's in a nutshell what a green event design looks like. Now to the most fun part is, how does that look like? So I have done a lot of different experimentation, because when I started, really, there wasn't much into the idea of events planner bringing sustainability into their events in a strategic manner. And it was incredibly hard to convince clients. Like most of the time I had people going, so you're planning events about sustainability? And it would do my head in, because it's not exactly what I'm doing. I could be planning an opening for a renewable energy company, or, and you go, we do IABC conferences and we're trying to put those little principles in it. So it doesn't have to do with the topic. It's not the way you plan. And I've kind of created my roadmap that I'll be sharing with you today. And I know that Mel will share the slides with you. And if any of it doesn't make sense, you're always welcome to reach out to me. I usually don't bite after 9 a.m., so feel free to come and reach out. But I divide these in 4 different areas. So just to give you an idea, is we find our goals, which it means what do we want to put our efforts in which areas. So I've divided them into 9 subcritical spaces where you can look at making your impacts. We need to look at who we're getting involved to make sure that we have our green team warriors in place. And then ultimately, we make a plan, and it's not fancy. It's literally like a spreadsheet, a doodle page, anything that works for you, but just you need to have it written. So this is how it looks like. Now, it seems a lot, and I can tell you, I used to do this A to Z every time for the first 10, 15 events. Slowly but surely became easier because it is embedded in my brain on what I needed to do. But I find that especially at the beginning, or if you work with larger teams, you want to have these kind of steps identified and eventually wrote down on a map so that you can keep following through from start to end. So let's start with the first. It's introducing your goals. I think Mel, she dropped me a question a while ago which say, how do you get the buy-in of people? Because it's not something really mainstream. So yes, of course, you want to put it into the greatest of your heart, how good is for the planet, but you need to be able to create a compelling story and a story that actually work towards a more global objective. So if you're familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, which was the big yellow chart I showed you at the beginning, what I like to do is to understand what is important to the person I work with, for example, or maybe if it's a product that we're launching, or if it's a company that has a sustainability statement, I will go back and see what are those goals, like what are they doing. Let's take an example of a company A, which is a multinational company, and they wrote that in 2024 they want to reduce food waste in their canteens because 2023 was a disaster. So I have that given from the company webpage. So my approach to this would be going to my client and say, hey, I saw that your sustainability department has written this mission for 2023 for 2024 to become a more to have zero waste, zero food waste. Why don't we use the same principle into our event planning? So if you see what we're doing here, we're not adding on to what they're doing, we helping them getting closer to their end goal mission. And that translates in the Sustainable Development Goals 1 and 2 very easily, 1 being no poverty and 2 being zero hunger. So this is a little bit of a creative piece where you would look at the Sustainable Development Goals and what your client's objectives and missions are, and you match them. Now, I appreciate that we don't really know all of them by heart and understand completely what they mean one by one. Very easy Google search will take that job out. So you look at the chart, look at your client's goals. So what I used to do at the beginning, I would have that map open. I would have my goals written on a piece of paper. I would basically match A to B. That's very simply done. Remember that when we plan sustainably, we want to take about preserving the natural environment, promoting healthy living and inclusive society, and support thriving smaller communities. So just trying to take those pieces and then think about what your client's manager events is about and match them up. So that's your first step. You want to create those objectives and you want to crystallize those objectives under forms of sustainable development goals to help, one, you and your team understand how big of an impact you are trying to make, and two, to help you build a story to get more buy-in as you get along. Because if you remember, we talk about communication. So this step is also gonna help you with that. Can I keep on? Can I move on? All good?
Yes, and I've just put the link to the UN Sustainability Goals into the chat too, for those who want to see it.
Awesome. So now we're looking at step 2. So let's say we have our goal. We said that company A wants to look into zero food waste. Now, these areas that you see here, this chart, it's something that I've created, and we actually created at Sustainable Event Planners. You will see different variations because, to be very honest, it's something that you want to create that works for you. So you can take this, you can destroy it, change it, make it prettier, take off completely. But the reason why we're doing this is because once you have decided which road you want to take, so we know which are our objectives, now we want to see where do we want to implement our objectives. So looking at these 9 different areas, so destination by the geographical, whether it is Australia, China, Philippines, London, that's your destination. You look at the venue and you look at accommodation, the two not to be confused. By venue, I mean where the event is taking place, and accommodation is, of course, if it's a multiple nights stay, is are you having your your guests staying in the same venue and not, and what do they do at accommodation level for sustainability. So those two things are not to be confused, because they might not overlap, or you may not have the accommodation portion if it's a one-day thing. F&B and transportation, I think that's quite self-explanatory. Production, here we're talking about anything you produce for the event, whether it's wristbands, lanyards, badges, printing material, banners, exhibition stands, gifts, anything that was not in this world before your event and you build it up because of your event, that's considered production work. Anything in between. Community, obviously, if you look back at the triple bottom line, one of the pillars is people. So community is all the community involvement that we'll be talking about. Marketing, because it's, again, how we communicate and influence that makes a change. And lastly is offsetting. I always leave that for last, because when you start working into the offsetting, it's a very overwhelming process, because in order for you to offset at the best way possible, you will be asked with a ton of data. And if you just starting getting your feet wet into planning sustainably, unless you have a person that is experienced with offsetting that can help you putting down a list of things you need to watch out for, I would say get yourself a little bit more comfortable into planning it, and we'll still need to do measurement, but you may not want to go straight to that avenue, because it's a lot of data that you'll be asked for to do a proper offsetting. And also it can get quite expensive. So, just be a judge of what you can and can't do. So I will usually say, leave that for last. And one of the biggest thing is, you see these 9 different things, and you think that even just with what we said, which was reduction of food waste, it can go in many different of those areas. Start small. So I always say, start with 1, maybe 2. If you feel very confident and you have really experienced people with you, maybe 3 of these areas, but just go deep. Don't just do one thing in destination, one thing in venue, one thing in F&B. Go deeper, because the story that you create and the impact you ultimately make, it's so much more profound when you dig in deeper in any of these given segments. And it helps you also understanding how much deeper you can keep on going. So when you're starting your plan, trying to go, okay, what can I handle? And be very realistic, because these things are not always easy to achieve. So be extra realistic. And if you feel that you got it in hand, you can always add on. But it's going to be hard for you to maintain if you want to do everything in every single spectrum of this chart. So just trying to stick in. For example, if we're looking at our example for food waste, and we're looking at, let's say, venue, F&B obviously as a default, and community, even under this, you could work with your venue to find menus that can be back to the kitchen. So we're talking about the building of menus that can be repurposed post-event. You can work with the venue to create table to farm. You can work with them to make sure that the food is ethically sourced, that is not compromising any livestock. So there's a lot of things that you can do in there. And you even looked at the food waste prevention and management that goes under the food and beverage segment, right? So if we're looking at food and beverage segment, we would look at what kind of food am I putting onto the table? Am I respectful to all my guests? Am I making sure that I'm actually feeding healthy, nutritious food, and it's catered for people of all ages and all spectrums? What are we doing with leftovers? How can I prevent leftovers? After the leftovers are produced, right? Who is going to take care of them? And yet you haven't even gone into community. So you see how further deep this is going. So if I'm looking at the community angle, can I maybe work together with smaller kitchens to help them, uplift their business model? Or can I work with charity organizations that maybe can take these meals off us and repurpose them? And how can I do that in a dignified manner? Yes, we want to make sure that we don't waste food, but how do we do that in a way that the person that is receiving the food that is left over feel happy about it, right? Nobody wants to eat from someone else's half-eaten meal, right? So let's see how in 5 minutes, I give you so much to think, and it's only 3 of these aspects. So start small and keep on going as you can, depending on your workforce, the abilities, the partners you have, so you can keep on scaling up, but start and go really deep into only one portion, and you'll feel so much more satisfied at the end than having so many little things done everywhere that the impact you won't be able to really do the wow effect at the end. So, and then again, that will help you as much next time you're trying to involve partners, supporters, sponsors, your boss, your client. So just trying to think smartly over here. And also don't kill yourself. This is not easy work. It's going to give you a headache because this goes on top of everything else you're doing to plan your event, right? So it's not going to be an easy task. Now we've got all our objectives. We have the areas of implementing. Now it's time to build our team and to make sure that we communicate effectively. I mean, most of us here are communicators, so I'm sure I don't have to go too deep into it. But I find that when we look at planning sustainably, and as planners, we are doers, we forget about talking to others. And we end up doing a lot of this work on our own, or with like a couple of our teammates, and just kill our heads because we need to do it all. Obviously, if you're working on behalf of a client, you want to have them involved from the start to the end of this process. You want to make sure that, you know, they give you their understanding and their support throughout the process, because when things get hard, or when you are trying to maybe propose something slightly different, they'll come to you and go, no, this is not how we do things. I don't want to do it anymore. So you need to make sure that that communication portion, it's done really manually. And that's why we looked at the sustainable development goals, because then you can go and back, oh, but this is part of your existing efforts. I'm not putting anything on top of it. If anything, I'm helping you to succeed there. So you want to make sure that when you talk to them, you know what to say to them, when to say to them. So it's, you know, trying to understand at the beginning what they want, how you want that to be said, whether it involves, do we want to add extra communications? Do we want to have maybe like a public speaking notes for it? And who does that go to? Does it only go to us as a team and a stakeholder, or do we want to involve our sponsors? Do we want to involve the attendees? So trying to think of all those parties, trying to think of what you want to say to them and when. And especially when it comes to 2 different areas, which is your suppliers or your vendors and your participants. Your suppliers is because if you don't make crystal clear what your expectations are from the beginning, they will be the one that will let you down. And that's, for the planners years, you know what I mean. When you speak to somebody and they say, yes, 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 you need to make sure that it's basically part of your RFP, of request for proposal, or what you're trying to achieve, and that it's going to be a make or break deal. You can't just say, oh, maybe, I don't know, because for them, it's going to be a very easy way out. So trying to be very adamant with what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and how you expect them to be involved into that step forward, into that step process. So make sure that they know exactly what you expect from them, and make sure that you keep communicating with them from start to the end of the plan, and then they are accountable and you see they actually moving forward. For our event goers, there's so much fun to be had with them. Imagine that, you know, we're trying to do a clean conference, right? So no food waste. How can we involve them? Can we make sure that maybe we explain this to them at the very beginning, so that we make sure that they are responsible about the presence to the conference, and they do. That actually helps us in general, right? We all want to know exactly how many people we have turning up. But the more we explain to them of the reasons why, the more they feel involved, the more they feel accountable. And then don't think just at the before, but it's also the during. What can we do to make sure that they still part of our plan? Can we do any activities over lunch? Can we get them to do I don't know, an experience? Or can we make sure that maybe they pack away the food that they don't eat? Or can we get them to help us with some work after the conference to maybe redistribute whatever hasn't been eaten. Any of these activities, it's actually is giving you added value to your event. It makes it more memorable, and people do love doing good, especially if you give them a good reason to stand out of the chair for an extra couple of minutes. I think it's, there's those few pieces that really you could do with your attendees that makes such a difference. And usually it doesn't cost you anything. So it's just an added value that we want to bring. So once you've got all of this in place, now we get into the most fun part of all, which is creating your plan. So this is a little bit of a tedious portion that, as we were saying before, it's something that I used to do all the time when I started, and it was very in-depth. And as I got more experienced, I started bringing it to like surface level, because I already know which activities I can do and where they work and where they not. But at the very beginning, I was doing the exact same flow process. So what you want here is, again, putting those objectives down that we discussed at the beginning, which areas do you want to implement, and then add down the actual activities you want to do. And here you can just see the name of the activity. So if we look at the first line that goes, encourage waste sorting and recycling. That's just the first line. Now you need to expand that and say how, where, by whom, and when. So you're going back into your communication process. So this is going to be your Bible that you would want to talk through with everyone involved. And this is also how you're going to start putting down things for your measurement. Because your measurement, it's also something that, again, you can show off. Hopefully, if you've done a good job at the end of the event, you can show that off to potential partners, to more clients, to venues, to whoever you need to help you the next time, and also to help yourself, remembering what you've done, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, right? So if you have all of these written down and you go like, this worked, this didn't work, and you write down what didn't work and why, next time around, you go like, nah, I'm not doing this, or like, oh, I can do this, but this time I'm going to do it this way rather than this way. So this is a bit of a tedious piece of work, which it would basically be your reflecting work, and I help you to put all the pieces together. It's the same as when you're an inexperienced event planner and you write everything down. This is going to be the exact same. So what would that look like when we're actually doing an event? So we come into the nice part. So what I put here is a little bit of a case study of, in honor of Mel being a big sporty, I put down a sport conference for today. So this just to show you how it looks like once you have done it, like when you're doing it, and what you can show to your bosses, clients, partners, moving forward. So what you see on the right there, I've split it out our objectives, I've put the results, and I've divided in which of the 3 pillars is going. This has been so far, for me, the most powerful way to show what we've done, to also get, what we were saying, that kind of global movement, and to also share with others so that they can understand the depth of our impact. So this is, you're more than welcome to copy this. This is the way I put it together. Usually in the middle, there is, in between objectives and results, there's another one that is actions, which is the long list of things that, we want to do with all your notes on it. But this is something pretty that if you want, you can share with whoever you want to share it with, or you can stay with you. It's just for your own benefit. But just to give you this case, so we looked at a sport conference for 650 people that went over 2 days. Now, the client came to me just very curious about what was sustainable event planning. And of course, the first question that he asked me is like, oh, but I work in the sports industry. I'm not sure we can pull that off. And I was like, no, we can definitely pull this off. So he wasn't really aware of the sustainable development goals, but he had very clear what he wanted to do. So he said to me, and he said, Serena, I hate food waste. I hate wasting energy, and I want to make sure that we bring as much help to smaller community as possible. That's what he gave me, nothing else. So then it was my duty to put those objectives into place. And I'm like, okay, let's see what the conference is like. Let me see what areas of implementation we can work on. And then I will translate those for you. That's why you can see things all over the place here, because it didn't really give me objectives as sustainable development goals. As we said at the beginning, I heard what he wanted and I translated that for him. So when he saw this objective chart, it was like, oh, that's a lot. That's awesome. Like that's all he said to me. He was so amazed. Now, throughout the planning process, once you had these charts with your objectives down and you start writing down your activities, you want to leave that space there for the results. And the results, again, you don't have to share them. If they're terrible, keep them for yourself. If you're not brave, you don't have to share. But what you want to look at, it's before you do anything with it, it's also understanding how much of an impact you had and how much more impact you can have next time. So for our case, we had this 2 days conference. We had 6 different sponsors, and we had very straightforward 3 breaks, lunch, networking in the evening, exhibition space, plan. Very easy. Now, the one of the things that we looked at, it was wanting to work with communities. So we actually worked for both food consumption leftover, and we had some packing goodie bags leftovers. And we worked for the food leftover. We worked with a local community. We were in Singapore at the time. So we worked with a community organization that helps the elderly from low-income families to bring them dignified meals every time. So what we did there, we worked with them before, and I called them and said, hey, I don't know, I hope I don't have any food waste, but we all know that that's never the case. And I said, I might have some food left over for this conference on this day. How can I give it to you? What's the best way to give it to you? So I had that prepared, right? So that was one way. And then what happened there, because I'm not only telling you the good stuff, I'm also going to tell you the bad stuff. I spoke to my venue and I gave them a number. So I said to them, I need 650 meals. And they knew that we were trying to achieve zero food waste. And we said, I want you to plan for 600 meals. Chef went overboard, he panicked, he prepared 720 meals. And this is because in his good heart, it was like, no, I can't have people hungry. And I'm like, I am accounting for no-shows. I am accounting for people not wanting to eat that much. I'm accounting for people, having to go in and out this conference. So I want 600 meals. He did 720. So my leftovers was massive. Now, we managed to save 60% of that leftover food, even on top of the extra that, the chef decided to prepare because it was better that way. And the rest of the 40%, actually, it went back as form or composting. So it didn't get into the landfill, but it wasn't saved. So that doesn't count for me. It's still going to waste. It's just that it was going to composting. But the 60% of that food was donated to the communities here in Singapore, to elderly people. What we did instead with the leftover goodie bags is that we worked with these 6 different vendors. And one of the things we were adamant about is we didn't want any piece of plastic. We were trying to be completely plastic free. And we said all of the items that we bring into this conference need to be purposeful. So unless they have a meaning to exist, we do not want them. So the partners and the sponsors, they came up with this really cool lineup of objects. So what we created, it was like a drawstring bag, one of those really simple sporty bags. Then we put together sunscreen, because we all need it when we're running outside, mosquito repellent, because again, we need it on this side of the world. And then we had one notepad with a set of pens, pen and pencils. So this was all inside this, runner pack. They called it the runner pack. Now, some of these people decided not to collect it because they were traveling, they didn't have space, they didn't need it, and so forth. What we did is we worked with an orphanage in Cebu in the Philippines to send them all of these leftover beds. And we did it at the perfect time because we did it just 2 months before the new school year started. And the best thing is I involved another client of mine that they actually based in Manila. And because I knew of them already working with this organization, we actually did only one shipping. So not only we worked on bringing more to this orphanage and help them saving money and give, you know, these items to the kids that were needed, we also saved on the carbon emission by just doing one single shipping instead of having multiple. Very easily. And it costed us half of the price. The shipping only costed us like $180. So yeah, that's all. And then the social impact and the comms team impact was insane because the orphanage actually sent us photos of the kids with the backpacks, and they did a quick thank you video. I think they just do it as a form of, you know, being grateful. And that video, it was used over and over and over. To me, it was a little bit exploited, but for them, it was, okay, this is an actual marketing piece that it costed us pretty much nothing, and it had a huge impact. And we also sent that to all of the conference attendance people, saying what was your trash became their treasure. So we created another piece to say, always think out of the box, always think of what you can do with what you have and how you can, if you can't use it, give to someone else. So that also became an educational piece that went out to the event attendees. Something really cool that we did with, you know, when we said we want to look at planning responsibly and being very mindful of the resources. So you know how most of events are outdoors, sports events are outdoors, and we have power generator that are powered with gas and oil. So we had what it was called a innovation showcase, where we actually had 3 different companies that they were working for temporary energy generators that they were all done with clean energy. So we had our conference energy actually completely done by humans. So they had this some sort of tapirola that you walk on, and it generates energy. So all of the laptops, all of the phones were all charged by your own energy. And we also had a couple of stands, like standing platforms where people could literally like have a walk while listening into the conference. So that's an awesome way for sponsors to promote themselves. Great way to save energy. And again, we're showing that there's more than just, you know, plug into a portable generator. So, and then the rest of the equipment as well was done with renewable energy. So we basically had 100% renewable energy in the house. And it was like something pretty interesting. So I think it was very, very well planned. Obviously, we had the partners that we could rely on. But the whole thing, it was quite interesting. And talking about responsible consumption, other things that we did there is it's inevitable that you will have to print something, but there's things that you can print without using paper. So we used sugarcane residues materials instead of paper for the brochures and for the badges. Even the lanyards, as we said, we wanted no plastic. We used cork instead, and we made them reusable. So no years on it, no sponsors on it, just the company name. And we collected them and we reused them for 2 years after that. So not only you save into your waste, but you also save into your budget, because think about not having to do that twice again. It's actually quite a cost saving. We did say about food and having healthy meals, being a sport conference. What we didn't say is that by having healthier meals, we actually lowered the carbon impact of our food by having farm-to-table food and by having 72% of our meals vegetarian. So again, it's quite of a easy switch to make. It might not be the easiest for everybody attending, but if you explain what you're trying to do, people are more willing than not to kind of comply with this. At the end of the day, you're feeding them, they'll eat whatever is there eventually. So this is just a few, and I can keep going on. But there is one thing that I feel that always shocked me about this conference is how we actually got an extra sponsor just by communicating what we were doing in terms of sustainability. So when we were looking at this way of reducing the power consumption in the venue, the guy that actually had these machines that generates power by walking, it wasn't a sponsor. So this company was not a sponsor originally. And I was basically cracking my head trying to figure out how we're going to have more sustainable alternatives for energy. And then my client goes like, oh, I think I've seen my old colleague that was working here that it started doing something else. And I said, okay, let's talk to them. And I see what he's doing. And I'm like, does he know what conference you're planning? Does he know anything about what we're trying to achieve? I was like, oh, no, I haven't said anything. All it took, it was to have one meeting with this person, going through our plans, telling him exactly why we wanted this. And not only, because our original plan was to ask him to come and showcase for free, he actually put money on the table. And that's something that we wouldn't have had until we decided to talk to this person. So while all of what you do, it's good for the planet, you also need to think about the business case that you can bring to the table to get those extra partners, those extra supporters, to get the buy-in for bigger stakeholders. Because at the end of the day, what we want is not just to help people understanding how to live more sustainably, but also how to work more sustainably and create an ecosystem of businesses that they work with the same principles. So the more we help one another, the more we can create an ecosystem and we can all benefit from it. In this case, we literally had, I think it was nearly $10,000 worth of extra sponsorship that just fell off the sky. So that's, I think it's one of my best stories for telling you that sustainability does matter and how you can quantify. I think if this is not a number, on top of all the free marketing that they've got, I think that's pretty much it. So now I hope I got you excited after the doom and gloom of the planning portion. I hope this got you a little bit more excited. So let's see a bit more. Let's talk a bit more about what you need to do today or tomorrow when you go like, that was awesome. I'm going to become the best green event planner in the planet. I hope to see your name soon enough in Forbes. But what you want to make sure is that when you start, you watch out for these things I put on this slide here. And this is because I banged my head against these little advices so many times. And I've seen people making the same mistakes over and over that I just want you to print it off, or like actually don't print it off. Have it at the background of your screen and make sure that they are there over and over. So don't take too much on board at once. Start small because it will get complex and you need to think at all the event stuff you need to do, all of the additional things you need to think about. Even if you do one thing, do one, but do it well. Don't have a written plan. You don't have a written plan. Whatever thing you said, it never happened and it will never happen. And then if you have communicated it and then you haven't followed through, you get to your event day going, uh-oh, what am I going to do now? So make sure that it's written at the best of your abilities and that it's shared with the right people. Make sure, point 3, that you communicate with your guests, your staff, your partners about everything you do because it's going to pay off. And make sure that you start tracking what you do as soon as you see any difference. It doesn't matter that it's in 6 months down the line. If you start seeing differences, you want to track them down. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can have it on Word, you can have on your notebook, you can have it as stickers, whatever it works for you. You don't need any complex tool for this. You just want to make sure that you can actually move forward and stick to the plan. Go to the end of it and make sure that there are no gaps in between. For example, classical gap in communication, it was with Chef and I. Chef, I'm doing this. I'm working for zero food waste. I want this food to be done this way. I want to be doing this. I want this and I want that. What does it do? It gives me extra meals. And that was Nothing else but our fault for not going back once again and say, hey, I'm saying 600 because I need to make sure that I've got no food left over, right? So that was it. It was enough for me not to tell him a week in advance, although we spoke about it for months. You know, they have many events, they're doing cooking in and out for so many people. So it's your duty to make sure that people stay on track. And with this, I will just keep this on the screen. So these are a few tips that you can use to create your own activities when you start planning events. Once again, you're welcome to screenshot this. You can download it. You can ask for more. But I will leave this on the screen for you to absorb. And then whenever you guys have questions, if you do have any, I'm here to hopefully give you some more clarity.
Thank you so much, Serena. There was so much gold in that. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's looking forward to going through the slides afterwards and getting excited. So any questions from anyone while we're waiting for people to come off mute or to type in the chat? One of the questions I had, and it's because I've heard you talk about this before as well, is when we talk about marketing and creating websites and all those sorts of things, I didn't realize that there's almost a digital waste involved in creating websites. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So we have, first of all, there is the e-waste, which is the actual physical objects like laptop, phones, and whatnot. So that's to consider the e-waste. But the carbon emission associated to websites in specific, content creation, video, emails. Actually, emails are the worst. We have no idea how much damage we do. And this is because you need to think about where do we store all of this content that we generate, right? So if you think of all the photos that we have, all of the videos that we upload, it needs to be stored somewhere. And that somewhere is always going to be, eventually is going to turn into a physical location with machines that need cooling, they need a ton of space, and they need to be powered non-stop, all day, every day, all year round. So what we're looking at with that, it's associating, for example, with green web hosts, which they actually look at hosting their servers into buildings that they actually are fed with renewable energy. And it won't be 100% renewable energy. I haven't found one so far. But what you will find is some of these green web hosters, they also do carbon offsetting globally. So obviously they won't just count your specific website, but what they will do as responsible part of the chain of CO2 emitters, what they will do, they will then go and offset everything that has been produced that is not done through renewable energy. And this is going back into choose your partners carefully, because you can't do it all on your own, right? So we're going back into finding that ecosystem of partners that can help you moving forward with your goals and ideals.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that explanation. And I think it's top of mind at the moment because you and I are working on the next IABC Fusion APAC conference, which is in March next year. And we're talking about websites and all those sorts of things. And it reminded me that for so many different events and just different initiatives, we create a new website, we create a new website, and we create new email accounts, and we do all that sort of stuff. It's not something that I've ever thought about before until you mentioned it. I think we're chatting about something last year. So thank you. Any questions from others in the audience? Helen.
Hey,
Yes.
Helen.
Hi, hello. I'm curious about carbon offsets. So I know you mentioned before it's a very involved and complicated process, but I have this suspicion that when it comes to corporate leaders and celebrities, they kind of go, oh, I'll take a private jet, but it's okay because I'm offsetting the carbon. And it's actually changing any behavior because I feel like there's this perception that a carbon offset removes the original flight. Like, how do the carbon offsets work and are they effective?
That's a great question. So the carbon offsets, first of all, it doesn't account for 100% of your emission. It only accounts for what you can calculate of your emission. If we take for example, the jet that you say, oh, they're taking a private jet, but I'm offsetting it, so that's okay. what you calculate there, you only calculate the trajectory from point A to point B of that plane. So you're not calculating where the plane came from in order to pick you up. You're not calculating where the plane is going back to after it's done with you. So you don't calculate that. You only calculate that trajectory. And the reason why it is effective to a certain extent is because the moment that you start putting money on the table, you will be by default more conservative because you know that you're going to end up with a fat bill at the end of this. Now, it doesn't help with changing the behavioral shift. Like, you don't do anything on behavioral shift, right? You just kind of go, oops, I've done this, I'm so sorry. It doesn't mean anything. So it is effective in a sense that what I feel it's most effective of is not just because we creating cleaner planet. No, what it does, it gives more work and it gives the opportunity for businesses that they are greener at heart to develop the skills, to develop the budgets, to actually be putting roots. So it's more a business shift. So on that aspect, I'd say I'm pro carbon offsetting, because what carbon offsetting does, it will give you like an array of options on how you want to offset, right? Do you want to donate money to this charity? Do you want to build this hospital? Do you want to create water supplies for these people? Do you want to plant trees? And all of those are organizations that eventually will benefit and will be able to grow. So under that aspect, I say yes to offsetting, not for what it does today, but what it's doing at a business level for tomorrow. Because to me, I would rather you say, oh, I'm going to go into a commercial plane and save the extra carbon emission, rather than say, oh, but I'm offsetting this. That carbon has been emitted. It is on the planet. A tree that you plant today to offset is not going to be effective within the next 10, 15, 20 years. So you're actually not fixing the problem, right? You are just justifying yourself in a way. But that said, I do support carbon offsetting, because if you look at events, right, very, very simple example. If you want to offset your carbons for even just your speakers, let's say you have 20 speakers coming from 5 different regions. When do you start your offset and when do you stop? Are you going to start when they leave their homes? Are you going to start when they get into the plane? Are you going to calculate everywhere they go during your conference? Are you going to calculate how they go back? Where is the limit? And that's why I'm like, it's a very overwhelming choice for events to do offsetting. It is doable, it is possible, but it's really tricky, because you will never be able to offset 100%, because you will have to make a choice of what you want to calculate. Are you going to calculate, for example, what I always like to say, what's the jet lag on your food? Where is your food coming from? Am I calculating the carbon emission of the food because I'm in Singapore, but I'm having Australian beef on my table for my 150 guests? Am I calculating that? How am I calculating that? Where is this beef coming from? Which transport method did it take? Where did it go? Is it going to start from the farm, or is it going to start from the factory? So see how many choices you will have to make.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you. I didn't understand at all how it worked. So that's really insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks.
I hope you'll never have to get into it soon enough. If you do, best of luck.
Yeah, well, look, I used to work for a CEO who would just take private jets everywhere. So yeah, I'm just quite conscious of it. So that's really useful. That's helpful. Thank you.
No worries.
We've got one more question here in the chat from Sally. Where do we find a certified sustainability event planner?
Okay, Sally, depends where you're at. So there are a bunch of organizations. So you can look at the Sustainable Event Alliance, which is one of the eldest association for events planners. Let me see. If I'll stop sharing, I'll be able to probably pause my sharing. I can write it down, but you have the Sustainable Event Alliance, which I recommend. They have been one of the longest standing. I was certified by them as well. Then depending where you are, if, for example, if you do work with a lot of UK people, there is another one called Positive Impact. I'm also an ambassador there. I worked with them a while, and they have their own courses. I would suggest also to look online for specific chapters. If you drop me where you are, or just maybe add me on LinkedIn, and I can send you some more resources and see where you can do that.
I will. Thank you. I'm in Brisbane.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you've got a few chapters in Australia for sure, but I think actually the Sustainable Event Alliance might be the best bet, because they do have a chapter in Queensland, I think.
Okay,
There you go.
beautiful. I'll look that up. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We're almost on time. As always, we'd love your feedback on our events. I've popped a link in the chat there, and it's only like a 4-question survey or something. So I would love for you to share your feedback, and I'm sure Serena would love to hear from you as well. Serena, where can people find you?
All right, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just Google for my name and surname. That's the best. Maybe I can just quickly reshare and let me just add here in the chat the oh, there you go. I can add you onto the website as well. So the company I work at is ACT. You'll see it up here. It's Activate Conscious Thinking, and it's all about events and sustainable communication. So anything, you can find it there. There's a whole bunch of resources. We have events. We're trying to publish like worthwhile events as well around the world, if you want to go there. But otherwise, if you want to chat with me, probably LinkedIn is the best. I'm on it 24/7.
And Serena is literally 24/7. She lives around the world throughout the year, so you never know when you'll find her. Thank you again, Serena, so much for sharing so much wisdom today. Everyone, I will send an email after this with the link to the slides that Serena shared. So she's been very generous with that. And also, we have a couple of events coming up. Again, I've popped a link in the chat there. We have a event that we're co-hosting on accessible digital communication. That's in a couple of weeks. And we also have an event at the end of the month on professional networking. So please check those out. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join in today's event. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
again,
everybody.
and good luck to all.
Thank you. That was amazing. That was really great.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And I will stop recording.